YouTube, what's up with it? It's NVclosetmedgrower, and you see him, the big homie, Mr. Big Dookie, and we're back for another weekly update. Whoa, there he goes. He's got some energy today. Take a look at everything going on here. Some big beautiful plants. Happy dog. Big Dookie. Big Dookie's the man. See the LED tents killing it. Everything praying in there. So, not really too much as far as announcements go this week. I was a day late. It was Memorial Day this past weekend here in the United States. That's a holiday where we celebrate our fallen soldiers and fallen troops and people in remembrance to our nation with those regards. So definitely an important weekend for all of us Americans, and blessings to all the troops out there, both those fallen and veterans and still currently active. Definitely much appreciate all of our soldiers. And also during our Memorial weekend on Saturday they had Patient Choice Awards, which was pretty fun. That's like a private event for medical patients in Las Vegas area. I went out there and had a really good time. So in fact, while I'm talking about that, I'm gonna need to shout out these guys too. These guys, for the last couple of years, have been going to different events in Vegas. These are always at the different events. Hippie Trips, hippietrips.com, and they make little handheld vaporizers and stuff. And every time I come through, he'd be hooking me up for, you know, completely unrelated to the channel. And he just he hooked me up and gave me this. This is their disposable vaporizer. It's actually like $15, made so you can use it for a day or two. You know, if you're going on a trip, say a weekend trip somewhere, don't want to bring your nice vape with you, grab something like that, and you know, it'll definitely make it through the trip. Once the battery's dead in it, just throw it out. They sell it pretty cheap. And he also gave me this, which is one of their older style vaporizers, which let me see if I can get it open. I gotta balance the camera. Ooh, magic. Holding a camera with no hands. But yeah, there we go. You see this is more or less the same style, but with the metal casing and not disposable. But yeah, cool stuff. I actually do use one of those on occasion. I like it for use with, where's it at? See, here's my little kit I be using sometimes. I like this attachment for vape juices, because when you have a thicker concentrate liquid, like most of the cannabis ones are, it actually uses gravity and the coil sits underneath it, and then it pulls the smoke around your vape juice. So being that it uses gravity, some of those thicker ones pull into the coil a little easier on this. And you can see I even use the battery on other tips sometimes. There's a dual coil ooze tip and got a dab stick in there. I don't know, that's my little vape kit I be using. And obviously, I know you guys probably seen my new promo video for that one, so got some fun toys. But I did want to shout out those guys. They are pretty cool guys and have always come through and been really cool to me for just no apparent reason. So definitely appreciate them. Much love. Now that's enough wasted time. It's already 4 minutes into bullshitting, and Dookie don't appreciate it, so he don't care. He's going to sleep. So let's get into the flower tent. Alright, the flower tent. You see everything is filled out rather nicely in here. I got some good sized buds. I got a whole lot of burning on the top of those ones, but overall everything's going pretty well. Let's start off over here on the left with our Beyond Dream number 2, and this here is on day 49. It's just starting its flush today. I'm bringing this one 6 weeks like I have before, and this pheno, you know, it kills it at 6 weeks. It's beautiful. This is my Blue Dream dominant pheno. See if I can get a little closer. There you go. Look at some trichomes. But yeah, it definitely does a good job. I just like the other pheno better, which is the other plant we have in the tent, and it flowers a little quicker. So you can see this one's well on its way to maturity, though it still has a little bit of white hairs. It's probably about half brown hairs, half white hairs. So the actual bud maturity's, you know, starting to finish out and get more towards its finishing stages. But and the trichomes are too. I haven't scoped them, but like I said, I've ran this cut twice now. My homeboys ran it a few times, and right around the 9-week mark's perfect. So I really don't need to scope it at this point. And like I said, I got some decent sized buds for sure. They're definitely no super King Kong buds, but they're not small either. I'd say overall, beyond dreams, you can expect, you know, a mid-size yield. I wouldn't expect any giant forearm size buds. Definitely not other two phenos I got, but they're no slouch for the yield department either, just because there's such good stacking. I mean, you can see how these buds stack down. And even down as you get into the lowers, they keep some pretty nice buds down here. So not too much of an issue there, other than some beautiful buds. You can also see it's starting to foxtail out, getting those little knuckly foxtails, which is, you know, tends to do on me. But overall, it's really nice. I do like it. It's a little less leafy than the other pheno, so it is a little nicer to trim, other than those little knuckles. But the finished product on it still looks beautiful. I think the finished product on this one may look better than this one, but it's close. It's a give or take, depending. So let's get into our other Beyond Dream. This one's Beyond Dream number 1. This is my favorite pheno right here. This one smells delicious, like wild berries. Love it. I love this stuff. I really gotta say that. I cannot not say it enough. You can see I did burn the top of this plant. I let it go dry for a day or two, and it's way too close up into this light. And the burning did continue a little bit since then, but not much. Since it's been hydrated, it's been alright. You can see like some of that shit just flaking right off, all dead material. But thankfully we're only about 2 weeks from finish here, and then we'll get something else in this spot. So for right now, those ugly buds on the top, what I'm going to do is more or less just leave them, let them finish out. And when it completely finishes, I'm probably just going to chop the edge of those tops, whatever stuff is burned off, right off of the cola, and, you know, finish it up a different way. Anything I chop off, I'll probably either dry up and smoke up separate. Probably not, because, well, let's face it, that's just burned up material. I'll probably just throw most of that out. I don't even really want to throw it in with my hash, because all that burned material might be able to break down in the water easier and cause more contaminants for my hash than if it was live material. So that's my guess anyways. I've never really ran overly burnt material as hash, so I couldn't know. But we'll see. That's some ideas anyways. We can go look over at this side of the canopy, where even though the buds are sitting a little lower, that's actually where I wanted my canopy to finish. If the rest of the canopy was sitting where these buds were, we would be in a much better shape. You can see the frost level though, killing it. And purple colors are just barely starting to come out on it. It's looking great. So yeah, this one's 1 week behind the other one, so it's on day 42, and it also got flushed today. I put quite a bit of water through them. I keep a 32-gallon trash can for my backup reservoir for my RO water, and you know, I keep that thing, you know, constantly filling up reservoirs, refill it, that type of thing. But today I had it completely full, and I actually ran it completely empty, running through both of those plants, and it got both these plants down to about between 200 and 300 parts per million coming out the bottom. I think this one was reading like 240, this one was 265-ish, but you know, that's approximate. It's kind of hard to get the samples out for the individual plants too. And you know, that's pretty good though. Once you get it below 300, it really, the plant starts eating on itself a heck of a lot more than it eats off the nutrients in the soil. So afterwards I did, you know, let it fill up for another few more hours off my RO tanks. Filled up my reservoir down here, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Don't mind the envelope. But filled that half up with RO water and ran another few gallons through there. So hopefully it should be low enough to where I can start my flushing process with fairly clean soil. Now, because of the fact I didn't get it as low as I want, I actually prefer to have my runoff down to 100 parts per million or lower on my first flush like this. And being that I didn't get it quite that low, I'm probably going to come through tomorrow and just run like another 5 gallons through each, and it should put me about to where I want. And then from there on out, I'm just going to let my dripper system work like normal, you know, pumping water in with small amount of runoff. I just have all clear water in there for now. And last thing I got to talk about in this scent is this is my first run that I did using Skunk Lab nutrients for the entire run. And I got to say, I think it did a pretty incredible job. It's definitely comparable to the other nutrients that I was using with my General Hydroponics series, and you know, mostly their supplements plus a few other supplements here and there of other things. You know, I think it definitely did a very comparable job, and I'm definitely happy with my bud production throughout here, considering, you know, little mishaps and this and that throughout the growth, such as this overgrowing, that burning, that being, you know, under lighting added in because I wasn't getting enough. And overall, I think Skunk Labs did a great job. The quality, as you can see down there, I'm definitely getting good frost production and that kind of thing. And I definitely, you know, have some plans that I may continue using the Skunk Labs lineup here as my main nutrient lineup for at least a short while. You know, even after I eventually get back to my series making my own nutrients, I still will probably be running Skunk Labs mainly, and then run my nutrients on the side, you know, with like a soilless plant and like Pro Mix hand fed on the side, just to, you know, somewhat compare growth and, you know, as testing phases to see what I do. And just so you guys know where I'm at there, I have my CalMag made, as you seen in the video a couple weeks ago. I'm still haven't gone through the process to order more ammonium nitrate. So as soon as I find a good source for ammonium nitrate and I actually get on the ball to order it, then I can get working on more of those videos. So let's get one more close-up on, how about some of this Beyond Dream number 1. Let's find a bud in the back. Something we haven't looked at. Something way back there. That looks beautiful. Gotta love that Beyond Dream. Some gorgeous, gorgeous plant. See, two different phenotypes definitely look a lot different once you get later in flower. In well, in veg they look similar, other than this one grows a hair faster, and in you know, early flower, before they really get their bud structure, they look pretty close to the same, because you can see the leaf structure between these two phenos is very similar. So you really can't notice until you get into flower, and then these two phenos really show their differences. This one looking a lot more like a Blue Dream, but getting just a little more knuckly, and then this one showing a lot more of the Purple Kush style signs, but still having the hybrided leaves. So cool stuff. And that is our flower tent and a little bit of talk about our Skunk Labs. So let's move it on. Right, got the white balance back to auto, and before we get into veg, let's talk about our sponsors. Gotta love the sponsors, North Genetics and TopShelfLight.com. Doing their things. North Genetics, get a hold of them on Instagram or by Gmail. Send them a message, ClosetMG. Get yourself a discount on your seeds. You need any good genetics. They definitely make some killer new polyhybrids. You guys see me running them and a few others here around the tube. So, TopShelfLight.com, 10% discount, ClosetMG. Very, very cool stuff. And actually, you want to see one of the beta testers that's killing it with some North Genetics, check out Man's Food. He follows my channel quite often, so much love, homie. I know you've been around a while. So yeah, I put up my charts from Skunk Labs too. So everything's working well around here. Gotta appreciate the sponsors. See Top Shelf Light doing its thing. But we'll get into that here in a little bit after we talk about veg. Alright, so veg, you see the big ones are getting bigger, which is what we want because they're about 2 weeks away from hitting flower, and they're definitely looking like they're getting close to ready to get there. The one on the right here is a Smurfberry. And we can look down, we see I actually topped this a few days back, and it's already growing in rather nicely into 2 new shoots throughout most of these tops. And they're already well-defined double shoots. So I think my next step with this plant is that I need to get it transplanted. I'm probably going to do that tomorrow. Same thing with this one over here, needs to get transplanted because both these are going into flower, like I said, in about 2 weeks, and I need at least that 2 weeks to get our root zone built up. This one I might leave a few more days because I went from a #1 pot into the soil mass it's in now, and I still wanted to fill out a little more with the roots where it's at before I transplant it. So, and if I have to wait an extra week in veg before I flip it in flower, that's fine with me. You know, I would rather have the root zone built up and have a small gap in flower than put a flower or a plant into flower without the proper root zone. Because even though there's a lot of foliage on there and I have a lot of really nice tops, if I don't have enough root zone, it's not going to be able to pull enough nutrients in to support large bud growth amongst all those tops, and I'll end up with a whole lot of really small nugs. And that, honestly, I think is somewhat what happened on my last Beyond Dream grow in the LED tent. I think I really would have had a lot larger bud growth if I would have gave it about a week and a half more veg and really let my roots build out in the pot before I flipped it to flower. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to let this get a little bigger, and then we can see how that Sour Patch Kiss does. Which, by the way, that's what that is, Sour Patch Kiss. Got this cut from a buddy of mine. So far he says it looks pretty good in flower. I haven't been over there in a little bit, so I haven't seen it running in flower. But I'm sure it's going to be killer. The Sour Patch Kiss is a cross between Sour Kush and Kimbo Kush. So, should be a really, really nice Kush with some good flavors to it. Should be earthy and sour, and maybe a little bit of sweetness here and there from different, what am I trying to say, different terpene profiles that I may get out of the different phenotypes. So, very cool. And my Smurfberry, this is off of my clone that I've been, running for quite a while now. So I'm happy to have her back to flower her out again. She's amazing, tastes great, really earthy with a hint of the same wild berry flavor we get in the Beyond Dreams, or at least a little bit of that hint. This is definitely a lot more earthy and cushy though. So let's get in here to the plants in the back. See, they're getting beast. We'll start off here to the far right. That is the Dreamberry, and Dreamberry is killing it. Look at the side branchings just coming out great. It's trying to form itself a little bush there. I retopped all 3 of these bigger ones like 2 days ago, I want to say, so they're just now starting to come back and make some, make some little tiny shoots down on the inside, and then a few more days they'll start looking like these ones where they're a little bigger, but for now they're not. But yeah, you can see, try to lower this down, side branching phenomenal right now on that Dreamberry. Then we can move it over this one. This one's my Beyond Dream. This is my Keeper Pheno, the one that's on the right, Beyond Dream number 1. You can see it's definitely a little faster vegger, a little more stretchier. Sorry about that. My camera hit into the Smurfberry and the Smurfberry hit the stop button. Fine, I guess it wanted more limelight. There you go. Looking good, Smurf. So, back to it. Beyond Dream, a little stretchier, but not as good a side branching as the Dreamberry. Dreamberry is the mother strain, I believe, to the Beyond Dream though. So, this is genetics that made that. But this is, I think when the original Beyond Dream line went, it was like either an F1 or an F2 Dreamberry that made it. This one's actually the F4 that made the current line of Dreamberry seeds. So that one's a little further stabilized Dreamberry, but definitely very cool stuff. Now, as we come through, this last and most certainly not least over here is the Smurfzilla. And I haven't really looked at it much lately to see if it's showing signs of sex or not. And it's still a little early to show signs, but it might. Actually, I see down in there that very much looks like a nutsack. And with the structure of this plant, it's looking like a male to me, so pretty sure this is a male. I'm gonna let it go for another week or so. In fact, I might even like sneak it in my flower tent for a few days and just let it flower out about 3 days and get a little bit of hormone change while it's in that number 1 pot, and hopefully that'll promote its sexing a little bit better, and then we can see what's going on with that Smurfzilla. So, because if it is a male, I'm going to chop it out of there and we'll pop a couple more seeds and see what we get going. But overall, looks great though. I mean, structure's great. It's growing, it's stretching. It's growing at a rather fast rate too. Looking nice. Toxic Lord. This clone actually just got its first topping a couple days ago also. Like, actually I think yesterday. Yesterday or the day before, I don't remember. But you see, overall it's doing decent. Nice and stacked up there in the top where it's growing in. Some of the original leaves on there are a little beat up, but overall the newest growth all up in here is looking very nice, and it's growing healthy, so can't complain. Back there in the back, you see we got our Jamaican sativa, looking just a little hungry, like the other one I grew did. The other one I grew ended up male, so I ended up throwing it out, or killing it. But this one is from seed now, and it's, you know, a few weeks old. It's definitely not growing at the fastest rate in the world, but it's staying more stacked than the other one I grew. So I'm really hoping here pretty soon it starts taking off. It also got its first topping just the other day, so I'd probably give it about another day or two, and then I'm going to transplant it from the solo cup and put it into a bigger pot, and from there we should see quite a bit faster growth. It's starting to get to the point where I expect it to speed up into a full veg mode. Because a lot of times when you pop from seed, that's why, in fact, that's why a lot of people like going from clone, is because, you know, as soon as those roots get set in the clone, it really then takes right off into full veg mode, and you really start getting your fast growth, as you can see out of these two over here that are almost the same size as this Smurfzilla. Were like, this Smurfzilla was already like 10 or 12 days old before those were rooted. You know what I mean? So they just seem to catch up a lot faster by skipping that seedling stage, whereas the seedling stage takes 2 to 3 weeks before you really can get going into full veg mode. And that one, I think it stayed seedling a little bit longer than a lot of phenotypes or a lot of plants that I'm used to. So it's definitely, like, I want to say somewhere around 3 weeks since that's been popped. But it's still doing pretty good. It's really healthy, and I can't wait to watch what happens when it starts growing. So that's veg. Quite a bit of beautiful stuff there. Leroy's doing his thing. For those that don't know, that's Leroy. He's my weed gnome. He takes care of my veg garden. Dookie, he's in charge of the whole operations. You know, he don't play. So let's move it over. Talk about the LED tent, the Duolux 600. Duolux 600 by TopShelfLight.com here. killing it. Look at how happy these plants are. A little deficient on this dreamberry, especially here in the middle. But overall, very, very, very happy plants. This toxic lord's amazingly happy also. I gotta thank one of my viewers. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but you know, there was a couple of them that mentioned it, to take the lenses off this LED so that way it lets it spread the light out more as compared to focusing it down, because I had vertical issues. You know, I'm sitting about 22 inches off the canopy, and this is a very intense light. So at that distance, I was having problems with everything bleaching out here in the center, while the outside wasn't quite getting enough light. Well, since I took that off, you can see around the tent, and just visually, there is a lot more light spread. And I actually took some readings this week after I changed it, just to double check. And I can say from this spread, there's definitely, being that it's not focusing down as much, some of this light is being wasted hitting this wall. But like, for instance, right here at dead center, it was right here at this point. I measured, and it was at like 62,000 lux, something like that. 60,000, right around 61,000 lux. And once I took, and that was with the lenses on. When I took the lenses off, it dropped down to 50,000, 51,000, something like that. I know it was quite a big difference. It was right around a 22% drop in lux. And then I also took a reading right over next to this screw right here. And it started off at 19,000 lux, or 19,100, dropped down to 18,200. So that was only about a 5% drop. So realistically, I'm looking at a 20% drop in lux here with only a 5% drop there, while this part was way over intense. So it probably evened out the light quite a bit, but my overall amount of light on my canopy now is lower than what it was with those focused lenses. Now I could drop my light another probably 1 or 2 inches, and it would even, you know, and then I would still have this even light spread with the same overall intensity as I was having before. But honestly, I think where I'm at right now is going to work just fine. So I'm going to leave my light sitting at the exact same height it is and let things continue to veg out, or flower out, sorry. So now that we got done talking about that, let's get in and zoom in on some of these plants. We're looking at day 28 on the dreamberry here to the right, and day 17 on this little toxic, nope, not day 17, day 20. Day 20 on the toxic lord here to the left. So, dreamberry, killing it, man. This plant is just super stacked. You can see the frost is beautiful. Day 28, it's doing an amazing job. The bud size too is definitely filling out decent. You know, for 4 weeks in, I can't complain whatsoever. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to have this cut. Like I was saying earlier, this is a special cut that the North Genetics guys used to continue the line, and this was one of the best cuts he had found out of the entire breeding project for the dreamberries. So very happy and stoked to have this cut and to be flowering it out. And I know they're happy to watch it flower on my channel too, and see someone else flower it and see how it goes with one of their, you know, prime cuts. So, very cool stuff. I'm happy to report that I'm happy with my plant. You know, like I said, it's maybe a little underfed, and I did just today actually give it a feeding as a top dress that I went way over. With the Skunk Lab nutrients, I've been running about 850 parts per million in my reservoirs, and this plant was still eating all that up. You see on the outside it's like a normal green color, if not a hair light. In the center it's definitely deficient. So I actually loaded it up with a Skunk Labs dose at about 1100 parts per million, but it was only 3/4 of a gallon, and added some of my beneficial bacteria, the Rutasis complete from Skunk Labs, and I top dressed it into this one today. So hopefully that evens out color a little bit by tomorrow, you know, by giving it a, you know, a nice heavy dose to sit into the soil on top of what it normally sucks up. And I didn't have any drip out the bottom when I added it. I kind of added it a ways after its normal feeding, so I know it absorbed every bit of that nutrients into the medium. So let's talk about the Toxic Lord here on day 20. This thing's doing a great job under this LED, staying nice and stacked and beautiful. You can see the structure is looking great. And it's definitely starting to put on its frost too. And I'm really excited to see what this Toxic Lord does for bud size in here. Because if you guys remember right, when I ran this plant under my dual-ended in the HPS tent, it was a lot of light on it and it was a lot of bud. In a number 7 pot with a tomato cage, I pulled over 8 ounces, which is a whole, you know, that's a pretty good harvest. And this thing had very, very large bud size, so plan on bringing it right around the 9-week mark again, like I did that time. I think that was right around right. Most strains, I've found a lot of cannabis strains really, that seems to be your sweet spot, somewhere right around day 60 through 68, you know, 63 to 65 being most of them. But you never know. Every pheno is different, but this is yet again somewhere right around that 9-week, maybe day 65 I would say would be ideal for how I grew it last time. And we'll see how it finishes up under the LED. It's definitely a beautiful, beautiful plant. And she's doing a great job producing, so that's our LED tent. Looking great. There you go. Now you can see the color a little bit better. Turned off the other lights, only have the cobs on. You can see what I mean about the discoloration. Still, you know, looking healthy on the outside, but like that bud, all of this in the middle is definitely a little deficient. So, but overall, it's still producing, looking great. So that's that. Normally it'd be time to go smoke, but I've had quite a few requests for me to go over my watering system, so I think I'm going to do that real quick. Add in one more little educational section before we go and celebrate another week. First, let's talk about this tent. This tent I have running on a flood and drain system, and I have a 27-gallon tote down here with a, I believe it's a 400-gallon-per-hour pump. Might be a 500-gallon-per-hour pump. I don't remember, but it's somewhere in that range. And what happens is twice a day I have this thing pumped for 15 minutes. I also have 2 air stones in there, so it's constantly staying aerated and moving the water. I need that to happen. It helps keep from bacteria buildup, and then it also, and algae buildup, and then it also helps keep higher oxygen levels within your water. So that's why keeping your nutrient bin bubbling is a good idea, even if you don't have to. And you'll notice your pH swings on it will be a lot better if you keep it oxygenated and keep it moving as compared to if you don't. So what this does is twice a day, like I said, it'll pump up and it'll fill up this tray for 15 minutes. It'll fill it up to about here. It'll pump up through this little one, fill up on this one until it starts draining back down, at which time it drains down through this side back into there. So it recirculates, leaving about 4 inches of water, 3 inches of water inside of it. Now, cocoa itself can wick water upwards of about 14 inches. So being that I have this right here, as long as I let it sit to completely saturate that bottom of the cocoa, it should be able to pull all the way to the top of this pot without too much issue, which it does, and that's how this process works. So, and this one's also, all of my automated setups, I use cocoa and perlite as a medium. And then actually this stuff on top is gnat mix, which is a little different. It's for killing off gnats, or gnat larvae. Different topic. Don't get sidetracked. Let's go. So this one, that's how that works. fills it up twice a day. The only thing with flood and drain tables, I do recommend about once every 4 to 5 weeks just to do a mini flush of water through your pots, because there's some salts, excess salts can build up in the bottom half of your pot inside your medium, because it's constantly sucking nutrients and water in, and any of those nutrients it doesn't use or that get left in the soil base are just left there as more water gets sucked in next feeding. So you eventually do want to put something in from the top to force all those salts out to clean them, then change right before you change out your bin. You know, not every week, but say once a month or once every month and a half during your grow cycles in a flood and drain setup. So that one's how that works. And these two are on dripper setups. These ones are homemade dripper setups that I made. They both have 17-gallon totes here. The only reason this is sitting here is because my little door broke. See, that one has a door on it. My door broke on this one, so I don't want too much excess light getting in there. That'll help build up algae, and then that algae can clog up your lines and that'll all sorts of things like that. So how this one works is I also have like a 300 gallon per hour or 400 gallon per hour pump inside each one of these tanks, and then I have a commercial air pump there. It's one of the smaller size ones, but commercial nonetheless, with 6 outputs on it. So I have 3 air stones running to each to keep these oxygenated at all times. And these ones are very important that I have to have air stones running at all times, because these ones are not recirculating like this is. That after it fills up, it recirculates back through. It keeps water moving while it's doing its feeding process. In these, this is literally just a reservoir filled with nutrient solution, stock nutrient solution. Well, not stock solution, but filled with nutrients, ready to use. Now, this, after it turns on twice a day for 15 minutes also. And how I regulate the amount coming out of it is by using pressure manifolds. So we'll go over it in flower. So you see this one, it's oxygenating, aerating, has the water pump. The water pump turns on, it comes and it pumps to this little unit. What this is a little pressure, 4-port pressure regulating manifold that breaks it down to 10 gallons per hour. So on this side of the pump, it's pressuring at full pressure from the water pump. Once it gets through this, it makes sure it slows the water to where it only goes at 10 gallons per hour. So no matter what, even with all these open, it's only going to run at 10 gallons per hour. So for 15 minutes, 10 gallons per hour, that's what, 2.5 gallons of water I could run through there, theoretically. It actually runs a little bit lower than that. I would say I get about 1.5 gallons of water through there in a 15-minute feeding if I have it on full open. So I have it coming up to this pressure manifold. Then from there, I have each one of these lines on a little on-off splitter. You can see right there. Right now I got this one on full on, so I can spit that gallon and a half of water into there every time it goes off and help flush it down. These are both on flush mode, so it's just doing water right now. See, some of these others like this one I have turned off. So for my bigger pots, that's what I do. I have it doing that. When I'm running a smaller pots or something like that, like these ones I was flowering out, some number 2 and number 3 pots, some different things, testing things. So I put on more regulators on here and a splitter. So the reason I needed these regulators though is because if you put that splitter and leave it open on both ends, it'll split out evenly on both ends. Now say I want to cut it down so it's slowing down the flow on one of these ends. When I slow down the flow on one of these ends, the pressure inside this line is going to go to the least resistance. So instead of going to this end that has a little bit of pressure, it's going to force more out this end while having very little out this end, because it's less pressure to go out the other end. So I need him on both ends to compensate some pressure in order to drip on both ends. And in veg it very much works the same way, so that comes over, and then that's a 6 gallon per hour splitter down there instead of the 10 or pressure manifold. And then as it comes up to these splitters, I then have it go down to 2 gallon per hour tips. But on these tips, I make sure I have them on both lines. So, this one's actually supposed to be in with this plant, but it's missing its piece. But either case, I'm gonna adjust that in a second. So, yeah, as long as you have pressure on both those ends, it'll come out both those ends at the pressure you need. But for instance, if I took off one of those ends, like I was saying, the other end would not drip and it would just shoot out this end. So it's very important to pay attention to where and how you have your water pressure going when you set up your dripper systems. The only other thing I gotta say with that is if you're gonna use an everyday water feeding system, make sure you're using like a cocoa or a rock wool substrate that stays very aerated, because if you use a soil or a peat moss base, your plants will get overwatered. There's just no way around it. You're not gonna be able to have enough oxygen at your root zone. So I would stay with either cocoa or rock wool or one of those substrates if you're gonna do an everyday automatic feeding system. So I hope that's enough information for you guys, because I'm sick of rambling and I'm ready to go smoke, man. Gotta love my subs. Time to smoke with y'all. Let me get some things set up. All right, see, everything's kind of a mess here, but it's time to smoke. So got a couple buds of Beyond Dream out here. There's some of the mid-sized buds. Finished buds, looking amazing. This is Beyond Dream 1, my favorite pheno. Good stuff. So I think, oops, sorry. I think I'm gonna smoke a little bit of that today, and I'm also going to smoke a little bit of this today. I think I'm going to go for a combo. And we might as well, because thanks to you guys, I just passed 20,000 subscribers this week, which is a whole lot. Never thought my channel would be this size. But I'm kind of glad it is. I've had a lot of fun building it, and I plan on having a lot of fun continuing to build on my channel and my brand, and I appreciate all you guys coming here with me. So this wax you're looking at, well, see some wax stuck in there onto a malleable shatter, is Beyond Dream also. This is what I was showing you guys last week. My homeboy blasted for me out of my trim. Stuff turned out great. I've been smoking it all week. Awesome, awesome stuff. Second run ever, and he killed it. Did a really great job. So that's what I'm going to be smoking on, and we're going to do a combo out of the Zob for the flower. And I got this new little rig. Actually, the rig itself I think is kind of cheap. It looks cool, but it's pretty cheap rig. But the banger is great. Look at that. It's like a 3mm thick, nice thick solid banger. And I got that while I was at the Patient Choice Awards. The only reason I'm disappointed on it is I wasn't paying attention while I bought it, and that's like a glass marble. Oops, glass marble in the middle. It's not a full recycler. That doesn't open up down to the bottom chamber. So it's like it percolates down here, and then it just has water sitting there, which doesn't make much sense to me. But it still hits decent, and you know, it works. So we're definitely going to try to use that banger. And I found it actually works best when I tilt it back a little bit. So we'll try to use that banger for the dab and use the Zob for our bong rip. And while I got this sitting here, I don't have very much left, but this is some hash I had from a few weeks ago. I was supposed to make hash this past weekend and didn't. I was busy with honey-do list stuff. So I'm definitely going to put a scoop of that on top of my bowl to make it interesting. So I'm going to get this broke up and ready, and I'll be right back to you guys. Might as well get your bowls all ready as well. Alright, so we're back. I got my nail heated. This one's for all the subs. Right around 20,100 of you guys, so should be a good time here. Wish me luck on the combo. Cheers, y'all. Got a little cough out of me. But overall, that was incredible. So, that was for all you guys. Much love to all the subs. Me and Big Dookie, we got to get out of here. But before we do, let's show some of this Dreamberry baby for us. Peace, y'all.